Hi, and welcome back to the Smart Driving Cars podcast. We appreciate you taking the time with us. This edition is sponsored by the Smart ETF's Smart Transportation and Technology ETF, symbol MOTO. For more info, head to motoetf.com. Technical support is provided by CARTS, the Corporation for Automated Road Transportation Safety, a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to safe and high-quality mobility for all. I'm Fred Fishkin, along with the Faculty Chair of Autonomous Vehicle Engineering at Princeton University, Alain Kornhauser. Hi again, Alain.
Hey, good afternoon, Fred.
Good afternoon, and joining us once again with October around the corner is consultant and publisher of the Dispatcher newsletter, Michael Sena from Sweden. Great to see you, Michael.
Wonderful to be here again, Fred, Alain. Nice to see you.
Have you.
Well, on top in the latest edition of the Dispatcher, batteries and the demand for what goes into making them as the push for electric vehicles continues. And you are painting here a Mad Max scenario. Michael, give us the overview.
Yeah, well, Mad Max is there to get your attention, but we're not so far from the situation where we're trying to do something with materials that we have to acquire. Many of them are in the ground. They have to be mined, they have to be processed, they have to be put into products, principally batteries, and the vehicles that are using these batteries. And it's clear to anyone who's looked at what resources we're going to require to meet the goals that are being established for how many cars are going to be in the market, how many cars are going to be sold in 2030, 2035, that are battery electric vehicles. We're just not going to get there. And so this article is it's not an electric car bashing article. I've done that before, but that's not the purpose of this. The purpose is to keep us from getting to where we are right now in the world with energy. I was just watching the news, and companies making whatever, bottles is a very good example. Making bottles is a high electric energy user, and companies that have been in business for many years are going out of business because they just can't afford to pay for the electricity and the energy that's required to produce their products. And
especially if they're made out of aluminum.
Especially if they're made out of aluminum, which many of the cars that was last month's issue. So what I'm trying to get to,
containers are the same. Go ahead. Yes, go. Sorry.
What I'm trying to do in this article is to outline what the situation is with all of the materials that are needed to go into both batteries and the cars that are using them, so that at some point in the future, we don't have to have our politicians speaking in the past exonerative tense saying mistakes were made. We don't have to do that. We know right now what the situation is, who's controlling most, if not almost all of the materials. It's China. They're in a perfect position to do exactly what they've been planning to do for the last 5 or 6 years, or even more, with electric cars, something that they couldn't do with ICE vehicles. They could never get their products into the market as ICE vehicles. They were just not capable of producing cars that could be operated in the US and Europe. But they're certainly getting them into the market now. And the other thing is that at some point in time, when we do realize that we're not going to be able to make all the electric vehicles that we plan to make, they're even in a better position, because they're continuing to produce ICE vehicles for their markets and for other markets, for example, in Russia and India and Southeast Asia and many other places, which are not going to be even thinking about electric vehicles for quite some time. So that's the purpose of the article. It goes into depth in each one of these issues, and I don't know who's going to read it. I don't know who's going to take it for what it is. I know I have some readers who are of the same opinion, who've encouraged me to continue in this mode. But a lot of people are simply moving down the track. The next issue, the next article is, and where we get into the IRA that was just passed in the United States, where there's tons of money being put into people's pockets for buying electric cars. I mean, we're providing incentives for doing things that are eventually going to get us into a huge hole. And we're not going to be able to dig ourselves.
Does it at all address your concerns when they're trying to force that the majority of battery components and the critical minerals need to come from North America? I mean, I don't know how that happens, but are they addressing the concerns that you have about China?
The minerals don't have to come from, because they can't. I mean, if you had to make a battery today with minerals coming from the United States, you wouldn't be able to do it. Most of the minerals are either being mined in mines that are owned by or controlled by agreement by China, but almost everything is being processed in China, just like aluminum. It's being processed there, it's being produced into batteries, and now the Chinese battery companies are moving into China so they can produce the batteries that will have to go into the cars by this law. The law says the car has to be assembled here in the US, and the batteries have to be produced. But that doesn't mean that the materials for them have to be processed and that the materials for them have to be mined there. I mean, they could go that far, but then they wouldn't be able to produce any batteries. So what it's doing right now is taking companies that are capable of producing wonderful cars in Korea, in Japan, in Germany, in France, and saying you can't sell your cars here unless you open up factories. And most companies have already done that, but not necessarily for their electric cars.
Well, this is a challenge, because of course we do know that with respect to the market for electric cars, I mean, the headlines that are coming out daily are about how electric cars apparently have won in China, and apparently that's what people are buying, or for whatever reasons being forced to buy. Best thing on the marketplace, who knows, but an enormous demand for electric cars in China. That's, of course, an enormous demand for the batteries that are going to support those electric cars. So then the issue is that even if you didn't have to make the batteries here, would you be able to get the batteries that one needs? Because it looks like maybe the demand in China is going to saturate what they can do on the one hand. On the other hand, batteries have always been, to my view, that the critical stumbling block in electric propulsion. I mean, people have wanted to do electric propulsion at least since I dated back to 1835 with Thomas Davenport, who really, at least in my looking, was the first guy to go out there and really make a DC electric motor and focus on trying to put it on mobility in 1835. And it's always been sort of the objective to do it. Why? Because when you do it with electricity and batteries and have regenerative braking, it almost looks like a perpetual motion machine. And anything that is sort of in the minds of an engineer, or a typical engineer for the last, at least maybe 200 years, if not more, is to create a perpetual motion machine. That's the gold standard out there. Oh my goodness. you put energy in, but you can get energy back out of it. So there's zero net energy to do the mobility. And it's always been the desire of probably every budding engineer. And to me, the amazing thing has been what I talk about in class is that, for 185 years since Davenport, the progress that we've made in battery technology and trying to come close to a perpetual motion machine really hasn't advanced very much. I mean, the batteries of today, maybe 2 or 3x or 4x better than the lead acids or whatever people were dealing with, but not 10, 100,000, whatever X we've gone in the digital world to take us from, however, analog computing to digital computing and the advances that we've made in that technology. And so we're sitting here trying to transform an industry with basically an energy storage and distribution system that we have yet to make a real breakthrough on. And to do it at the scales that one is trying to do that with the quality of that entity is really challenging. Because if you look at
it's not just challenging, it's impossible.
Well, yeah, I might agree. Impossible with the current form. It would be like, let's do a mobile phone with the compute capabilities and communication capabilities that we had, that von Neumann had, or something like that in 1945, or IBM mainframes. I mean, it's almost silly to even think about it. And so, it's nice, it's interesting. The issue is getting the scale, and that's what you're pointing out very, very, very handsomely here, is getting the scale is a non-trivial task at this particular point with the tools and the ways and the things that we have for doing it now. Now, if somebody makes an enormous breakthrough in battery technology or electric storage technology, which then requires not these materials, other materials and other things, and maybe. But boy, where we are now, it is challenging.
Michael,
Go ahead,
I'm
Fred.
curious
Sorry.
as to why you say impossible. A lot of people are curious because they see headlines coming out, every week or two at least, with new technologies that are so promising. If you take a look at all kinds of reports, Carnegie Mellon, MIT, so many places that are saying they've got this new technology on the way.
Yeah, well, we've said the same thing about hydrogen vehicles. I mean, if you want to, we're looking at building 100 million cars a year.
100 million, yeah, or
100
10,
million cars.
10 to 100 million
10,
cars a year. Take 10, take 100.
If you're going to sell, if 50% of the cars on the market are going to be sold at a particular time, you're looking at 50 million cars a year. So let's just make, let's just look at the numbers. Those cars require batteries. Those cars require everything that needs to go into a battery. I'm not even looking at the charging. The primary issues are being able to generate enough electricity in order to be able to charge everything else, including building whatever it is we're building, plus charging vehicles, which is something we're not doing right now. And Alain has talked about this at length, adding this additional amount. So we thought we had, when we started with this process, no one really asked, do we have all of the minerals that we need to be able to make the batteries? Oh yeah, we can get them. That's no problem. I mean, who's saying that? Who's in the business of making these cars? He's not going to say, yes, this is a real problem. But now we're here, not 2000, 2006, not 2013 or 12. Now we're in 2022, looking at in less than 10 years time of having many of the cars that we're now producing as ICE vehicles as being electric cars. And we don't have the minerals to be able to produce these. We need to be able to take them out of the ground. We need to process them. Those have to be, at present time, most of that processing is going on in China. We thought we could produce enough batteries. If you look at the numbers, how many people are in the process now of building plants, whether it's the group in Sweden or Musk or the Chinese, they're trying to build these things as quickly as they can everywhere in order to generate enough batteries that will go in these cars. We don't know whether we can do that, but the likelihood is very high that we cannot. We thought we could generate enough electricity. We can't even generate enough electricity at a price that people can afford to keep the factories running. I mean, this is a real problem here in not just in Europe, but in most of the world right now. And because we've given up on the one source of electricity that we had that was dependable, we're closing down another one that looked to be clean, nuclear energy, and we had people who were pushing this. I don't know who was behind that, but I can give some guesses of who was behind the environmental groups who were pushing this. And now everyone says, gee, how are we going to run our electricity? The wind doesn't always blow. The sun doesn't always shine. We've got lots of renewable energy, but we don't have any dependable energy that keeps the lights on and keeps things working. And at the same time, we're pushing people to buy electric cars. We don't have to do that. What's the goal? What's the objective? The objective is to reduce emissions. That's what all this is about. There's nothing else that we're trying to focus on here. That's not the answer. The answer isn't to make more electricity using coal in China to be able to do everything that's necessary. That it's not staying in China. It's going up into the atmosphere, and it's creating more and more of a problem. I just don't understand why this is so difficult for folks to understand. I just don't get it. You know, if Russia and China and India and all of those countries are still pouring lots of bad stuff up there, it doesn't make a small difference what Sweden does or even what Germany does. In the United States, if you look at where how things have been moving in the United States towards reducing emissions and getting greener, it's been going in the right direction. It's going there. But at the same time, these other countries have been coming online and pouring more and more and more stuff up there. And all we're doing is feeding this huge beast, which continues to take coal out of the ground and use it to be able to do what it's basically what we're telling it has to do is produce more cars so that we can drive them around here.
I think it's all going to reach a head this winter when the whole energy issue of Europe comes up as a question mark if something isn't done about the whole Ukrainian thing, because of course the role that Russia played in the distribution of energy throughout Europe, whether it be natural gas, or maybe electricity, or shutting down more of the nuclear plants in Ukraine and so on. And what about Germany, and how is Hungary dependent on the energy flow out of all that, and so on and so forth? I mean, talk about potential to, this winter is going to be really interesting in terms of the geopolitical implications of energy. And, is Saudi Arabia going to show up with oil tankers or something like that?
We don't need
really
oil. We don't need oil.
I know you don't,
yeah.
but I don't know.
We need gas.
I know.
We need gas because Germany got themselves in a problem by believing that Russia acted as a normal country, and its leadership were reasonable people. They aren't. But my point is that was a conscious move on the part of Russia. They knew exactly what they were doing. They were getting Germany and the rest of Europe, Italy, Greece, all of the countries in a position where they were completely dependent, and then they went into Ukraine.
Right. I mean, and in a sense, if one looks at their strategy, my goodness, look at what they've done to the oil markets and the price of fuel and so on and so forth during the summer. What's it going to be like during the winter? Okay. And winter in Europe, which, I think it gets cold there, doesn't it? And
it gets cold.
People, I guess, will put on their gilet as I did today with mine, but I mean, it's going to be, I don't know, it's going to be very interesting. And then somebody says, oh my goodness, we've had this other product that really is in abundance. And in fact, whose price had gone down to, really what something should be that's in abundance. And all of a sudden, we're not going to use that. We're going to go out and use electricity to do this mobility. Which is the energy that's really in enormous demand. Why? Because you just want to turn a light on.
Yep. So, any ideas about how we can get this up to the fearless leaders in places like the United States, so they can stop saying we have to get $7,500 into everybody's pocket so they can buy an electric car?
I mean, it is really interesting. I mean, I mean, we're subsidizing ourselves out of business.
Exactly. Well, we just bought a new car. Actually, we bought it back in July, but we took ownership of it today, and it's a hybrid. It's
excellent.
A Toyota RAV4 hybrid. It's my wife's car.
Excellent. Is it a stick shift?
They don't come in stick shifts.
Come on, I thought she drove a stick.
She does. Yeah, it was hard. She drove her 2006 Toyota stick shift to the Toyota dealer today.
Oh
to
my
pick up
goodness. We are automating the going through gears in Europe, and everything is now automated. Ooh.
Yeah.
Moving on, Michael, in the dispatcher, you also get into the dangers of ungated railroad crossings, and you're saying technology could be employed to help avoid collisions. Tell us about the issue and the solution.
Yeah, well, there's the solution. Specifically, it's an application that was developed in Sweden with the Swedish Road Administration. We have a lot of ungated railroad crossings in Sweden. Sweden is the third largest country in Europe, excluding Russia, after France and Spain. So it's long, and it's lots of forest, and it's got lots of railroads. There are approximately 3,500 ungated rail crossings that are the responsibility of the road administration. There are another 2,500 which are private. And these are dangerous. I mean, if you've ever been in the vicinity of one of these things and you hear a train coming, you've got to be very careful. And there are a significant number of deaths. It's not like, huge percentage, but it's a significant number, and it's enough to be able to want to do something about it. But it's extremely expensive to turn an ungated to a gated, just putting electronics in it. Or to do what they're doing in the Netherlands, which is building separations in many of theirs, but they've only got a few hundred compared to Sweden. So the road administration has developed an application. It's really a start. It's a first step to warn people, both in cars and in trucks, as they're approaching the intersection, if a train is in the vicinity, so that there's this intercommunication between the train that's coming and the individuals who are in the vicinity. They call it a fenced area. You enter the fenced area, and suddenly you're available for a message that comes to them. I don't have all the information about how it's working, but Alain and I had a conversation about this yesterday, and now I'm going to have a meeting with the people who have developed this. But so it's a start.
It's an interesting one because, of course, for some time we've been talking about vehicle-to-vehicle communications, and talking about how as two vehicles are approaching themselves at an intersection, they should be communicating, and it's always been kind of nice because you can see around the corner type of thing, and so on and so forth. But if you look at where this is really valuable, is not car to car, is car to choo-choo. Because if there's a choo-choo come down the track and you're not aware of it, things could get not very pretty very quickly. And so, of course, that's what this application is focused on. But of course, it's non-trivial because you have to have the information, you have to have the communications, you both have to be on the same page in some sense, and to get people on the same page is not trivial.
Yep.
And so but this is a step, and this is a good step, and it's worth the effort, and I wish you all the best with it.
Another issue you tread upon is pollution from tires, Michael.
Yeah,
This is new to me.
it was new. Well, it's one of these things that you kind of think about it, and we have, working as I have with the road administration, there are two camps in Sweden. There's the one camp, which is you have studded tires because in Sweden you've got snow, you have ice, and clearly safer alternative if you're traveling at times, especially early in the morning or late when it freezes. Studded tires really do save lives. That's proven. But one of the big problems with studded tires is that they generate particles off the roads. I mean, they're eating up the roads. So when we do roads here, most of the damage to the roads is from the ruts from the cars. So as you're driving, and if you're waterplaning, it's like heavily raining, you go into these ruts and you get stuck there, because that's what happens. We have studded tires, and we do this, fix the roads quite often. The idea is that if you don't have studs, you don't have the problem. So they have winter tires that don't have studs, but they don't work as well as studded tires. So I don't use them. I mean, I use studded tires and will continue to. So it's in the heads of people in Sweden, because you hear about this sort of thing. This group has decided to do something, and it's not from the road dust. This is from the tire dust, because when you run your tires, you're wearing the tires out. That the stuff from the tires goes someplace. Where does it go? It goes up into the atmosphere. It spreads around and it's on things, and it's particles. It's chemicals, and it's not rubber anymore. It's synthetic rubber. But this gets into the atmosphere, and why not vacuum it up while it's coming off the tires, rather than just letting it go out into the atmosphere? Why not? Why doesn't every car, and probably at some point at a time, the EU will make a law saying that every car has to have a little vacuum cleaner on every tire, and then they'll figure out ways of gathering it all up and then doing something with it. It's like recycling aluminum. Eventually you recycle aluminum, you make new aluminum cans. So I thought this was interesting, and that's what the newsletter is for. Every now and then I find an interesting thing and I'll throw it in there.
Yeah,
And
it certainly is. I mean, and this has been going on for years, and I spent a couple winters at the University of Minnesota and addressed the same issues you addressed with respect to studded tires, and I think and maybe, and I'm not sure where they are today, but at one point it was seriously discussed to basically outlaw studded tires. You could put on chains, but to have studded tires was detrimental because they're on all the time. And
In the
so
winter.
they're in the winter, and
Yeah.
so they're on
Yeah.
when there's snow and when there isn't,
Mhm.
and on surfaces that do have ice and so on, and surfaces that don't. And of course, the wear and tear that these things, the rutting that these cause is substantial. And of course, then the maintenance and so on to eliminate the rutting, and then actually the design and the surfacing of roads and the differential surfacing at places where you're likely to get rutting versus not likely, blah, 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 and all the other things are, make this a substantial issue.
Mhm.
There's also, of course, the health issue of this, to the extent that this, not only have we done something about tailpipe emissions and so on, going, the whole issue of emissions coming from the wheels of the vehicles that run around is substantial. And of course, the vacuuming it up and dealing with it in some sense, we're doing that with catalytic converters, with the exhaust that's coming out of an engine. We're basically vacuuming some of the bad stuff out of it. You could think of it as vacuuming some of the
Sure.
bad stuff out of it with catalytic converters. So, it's one could think about doing all that, and if you ever, every once in a while I watch Formula One racing and so on, and what racing does to tires and what they do with, I mean, there ends up being pellets all over the darn place, all over the roadway that are really the product of the wear of those tires during a race, and so on. So yeah, it's an issue.
We will be back with more, but this is a good time to remind you about our sponsor, the Smart ETF's Smart Transportation and Technology ETF, symbol MOTO. To get more info, head to motoetf.com. On the website, look for the white paper. It's called The Smart Transportation Revolution. You'll find it under the Insights and News tab. Some great information there to help you make informed decisions about investing. ETFs, you probably know, can be a smart way to spread risk with investments, maybe focus on a particular category of stocks. That website again is motoetf.com. We are back with more of Smart Driving Cars and our guest, the dispatcher publisher, Michael Sena. There are a couple of lighter pieces in the latest edition, Michael. The silver Aston Martin DB5, owned by the estate of Sean Connery, has been sold for nearly $2.5 million. This doesn't have all the gadgets, the cool stuff that we saw in the movie, though, right?
No, it doesn't. He bought it himself. I guess he decided that he wanted to have it in his later years, and he drove it around, and now it's for sale. I mean, there are so many people who love cars. We have a summer vacation place, and every Wednesday between the middle of June and the middle of August, there's a gathering of classic cars in our town, and then there's everything is there, from Rolls Royces to MGs and Triumphs and everything. And there's just this spirit of people, and I don't know, maybe someday there'll be a gathering of less electric car enthusiasts, but somehow I don't know. I can't imagine it unless they've got hood ornaments.
I was in Memphis this past weekend went to Graceland, and we had the conference that I was at. We had a function there at Graceland in the motor museum part of what Elvis had. And my goodness, Elvis's collection, including the pink Cadillac. I mean, it is totally gorgeous. The Mercedes limousine and so on and whatever. I mean, it is.
Lots of fancy hood ornaments, I'm sure. And there's an interesting history of hood ornaments in the latest dispatcher. Michael, tell us about that and your particular favorite, maybe.
Yeah, well, this has been in the works for quite some time. I've always had a strong interest in hood ornaments. I grew up at a time when there was just beginning to be phased out. So I had maybe 10 years when hood ornaments like the 1948 Pontiac that I've got in the article, and several others were there, and they were very special, and just these designs that were incorporated extremely well into the overall line and design of the cars. I contrast the 48 Pontiac with the Volkswagen. You know, for the Volkswagen, the hood ornament was the handle that pulled up the frunk. You know, they somehow they transmogrified the ornament into this you know, this very utilitarian thing. But you know, with all of the seriousness of the first article on batteries and some of the other issues, I thought it was time to give my readers something on the lighter side, and hopefully they'll enjoy it. Hopefully some of them will have some memories of their own hood ornaments that were favorites for them. And there's one thing very special in here. There's a click on where you can see some of the world's best hood ornaments that are in a collection in Michigan. So, you know, even that's worth the price of admission to the dispatcher this month.
I guess none of the cars today have hood ornaments, simply because that was
they do. Yeah, Rolls-Royce still has them. Bentley. But in the article, you can see the mechanism that takes them down as soon as once the car is parked, or it hides them.
Sure, because of the aerodynamic effects, and therefore you're going to lose a little bit of your miles per gallon on it, and they've disappeared. You know, they're drag. I can't.
Do you think somebody who owns a Rolls Royce really is counting the pennies?
No, but everybody, but the regulator who's out there looking at what their highway and the city MPGs, miles per gallon, are, and so on and so forth, and I suspect that's
Gosh, that Pontiac ornament looks aerodynamic to me, Michael.
It sure does. It really it does. I mean, the whole thing, just seeing it on the car, seeing how you know the band, the chrome is you know, these folios it's just absolutely gorgeous. But the thing is, I wanted to make another point, that whenever you look for hood ornaments and you get something, you know, from wherever, it says, well, they were just put there to be fancy radiator caps. You know, the original first cars, not the very first cars, but later cars, where the radiator was very prominent, and the radiator cap was accessible because you had to get it off really quickly, so that this became a pedestal for them. I went back a bit further and said, it's, you know, it goes deeper than that. Not, you know, and that's
ships,
starting in the Viking ships, or before that, actually.
You know, the maidenheads on the old Viking ships.
The dragons on the Viking ships, the dragons and serpents, and then the figureheads, and then the maidenheads, the lovely women who were there to bring luck to the seamen, and carrying that into this talisman. You wore something, you had something to not only to bring you luck, but to bring you safety. You know, bring you back safely. With the Viking dragons were there to help your gods beat the gods of your enemy. You didn't, as a strong Viking, you didn't care about putting fear into the hearts of your enemy. What you did want to do is you wanted to have your god be in a very strong position against their gods. So there was sort of these two levels that they were fighting on. it's a little bit far-fetched, but it's fun. I mean, cars are not just pieces of metal and plastic and rubber, and cars and trucks. Take a look at the front of a Mack truck. What's on a Mack truck? There's a bulldog, and that bulldog is still, it's still there, and there's a reason why it's a bulldog, and it's not a poodle. This it's not one of these shih tzus or whatever they're called. It's a bulldog.
Very good. Very good. So
Yeah.
the upshot is read the Dispatcher, find it at michaellsena.com.
Please.
Some other headlines
It's
to
free.
get to. U.S. News and World Report has a headline that reads, South Korea hopes to have 50% autonomous cars by 2035. Alan, I can see you grimacing, and it sounds like they're talking about private ownership.
Yeah, great. Okay. I mean, I just can't imagine. I don't know. I really don't know why, what the objective is, really is. But sure, have that. Okay, great.
Well, the piece seems to
Whatever.
indicate the government there, of course, wants to be seen as being ahead of other countries. There's certainly a big technology company with everything in so many areas today.
Well,
And
I'm
that's
sure
what they're
sure
pushing.
it's being ahead, and it shows something, but maybe not. Again, the issue is that are we being chauffeured, or is this something to just help the driver, comfort, convenience, and some aspects of safety? If the automation is to overcome the misbehavior of drivers, then that's fantastic, because as I continue to say, most, essentially almost all of crashes are due to misbehaviors of drivers. And so if you want to do the automation to basically overcome that misbehavior, so that when the misbehavior doesn't lead to a crash, the intelligence of the automated system takes over and keeps it from getting out of hand, then that's fine. But I'm not sure that that's really what folks are focusing on this thing, and it's kind of a shame that they're not. I mean, we've always had the opportunity to put governors on cars to, instead of my speedometer saying I can go 220 miles an hour in my car, where in the heck am I going to do 220 in Jersey? I mean, it's almost silly. And if I want to take it to a track, then it's in a private area, and who cares? But on public roads, and so there really should be governors on there. If one looks at the way people are driving on roads these days in the U.S., I mean, it's like crazy stuff. In the right-hand lanes, they're going faster than in the left-hand lanes, and going at differential speeds. It's like, it's nuts. And then you get to the alcohol consumption, and you get to the road rage, and you get to the texting, and you get to all that stuff. That's our challenge. So if all this automation is to overcome those challenges, fantastic. If it's for something else, then I don't know.
Meanwhile, Brad Templeton has a piece in Forbes that's headlined, "Why don't you have a self-driving car yet?" And it's a two-part series explaining what he says are the big problems, technological and legal.
Well, I don't know about legal. It just doesn't work well enough. If you're really going to be chauffeured around, then the thing can't crash, or rarely crash. If I get on an airplane, a United Airlines flight, I'm assuming that sucker's not going to crash. Okay. And so far, so good. I'm a happy camper. And I really don't care how they do it. I don't know if there's a pilot up there. I don't know what the pilot's doing. They now don't even let me knock on the door and say, "Hey, yo, can you go a little faster," or something. They don't. You get near that door and they arrest you. Okay. I don't know what's going on up there. and actually I don't care, because so far they've gotten me safely to where I wanted to go. And so, sure, but so far these systems don't do it in enough different places. They do it in a couple places. They are doing it in Chandler. They are doing it now in downtown Phoenix. They are doing it in places in San Francisco. They may actually be doing it in some places in China. But at least, who knows? But at least they're doing it in public roadways under normal conditions without having a police escort or the equivalent. So it is happening in the small. The issue is to happen in the large. Certainly, the expectations, we have expectations of our cars that we can go visit grandma without re-energizing them, and grandma lives 2,000 miles away or something. I don't know what our perception is, but we have a perception that we can travel very far without re-energizing. And the initial problem of electric vehicles was, oh my goodness, the range is only 200 miles or 100 miles. Jesus, how often do you go 100 miles away? It turns out not very often. But we still have that perception of that outlier that we want to be able to hit. All of a sudden, if I buy one of these things, it's gonna have to be able to not necessarily climb the Great Wall of China or go down the riverbeds or across jagged mountains, but it's gonna have to go on most roads. And right now, and do it right now, it's not doing it on most roads, not even a few roads. Well, maybe a few, but.
And of course, we're still talking about creating this operational design domain, defined areas, places like Trenton, where this could really be put to good use.
Look, I can't see anybody selling me a driverless vehicle that doesn't have a governor on board, called a governor, that says this vehicle does not go driverlessly in these places. It only goes in these places at this time, and it probably is out there looking to see if it's snowing or not. And it says, and if I want to send it out there when it's snowing, that it says, I'm not going. I can't see anybody selling us that to sell it to me where now I can misbehave in using it. Those folks are going to be bankrupt instantaneously. Okay, because they're going to have to be responsible for its operation. And in fact, when these things are licensed in the Motor Vehicle Commission in New Jersey or in Pennsylvania or in Arkansas or Mississippi, or you pick the state in the United States, there's going to have to be a responsible entity designated in case this thing, one, violates traffic laws, okay? Because tickets are going to be issued to these things. And if tickets are issued, somebody's going to have to pay them. And can you imagine somebody sending their driverless vehicle? I'm going to send it down to you, Fred, and it now is going to have to adhere to all the traffic laws between Princeton and Jackson, New Jersey, and it goes above the speed limit. The police are going to, each of these communities are going to be there. Oh man, we're ticketing that guy. This is cheap revenue, man. We're just gonna ticket it. Okay. Because are we really going to allow a driverless entity go out there and violate our traffic laws the way we violate the traffic laws? I don't know. I don't seem to think so. I just don't seem to
Have to
think
go after
so.
the coders on that, right?
Well, yeah. So therefore, all these things are going to have to be out there, absolutely coming to a complete stop at stop signs, not running red lights, not entering crosswalks if there's a pedestrian in the crosswalk, and you name the other sort of laws, rules of the road that we have out there, including speed limits. And so when one considers that these are probably constraints that are placed on this system, is anyone really going to want to buy one? I don't know. How's Madison Avenue going to assuage me to say, oh yeah, I know, I want one of these things? And which communities aren't going to let these things go down their streets violating the speed limit. You know, I go running every morning on Mercer Street in Princeton. The speed limit's 25 miles an hour. We have road humps there to try to keep cars 25 miles an hour, and who knows how fast they're trying to run me over down there, and the police sit there and whatever. And they can't pull over everybody that's going over 25. I guess they only pull people over that are going over 35 or 40 or something. Otherwise, you know, they'd be pulling everybody over. But we're not going to allow a driverless vehicle to just behave that way. I don't believe so. And they're going to have the ability to, if the police, you know, has a whatever on it, those things pull over and accept a ticket from the policeman. I think that's the way society's going to react to these things. Maybe I'm goofy. I don't know. Talk to me here.
I don't know what I don't know why the article was written. I'm sure Brad, I haven't read it. I think I will just see why don't we have self-driving cars yet? I mean, that's for most people.
Driverless cars, self-driving. I mean, self-driving, I call the ones that help us out. So on a level 2 and below, level 2 plus and below, whatever.
But it's is it titled "Why Don't We Have Self-Driving Cars"? Or is it titled
that I believe is what the title is.
Yeah, but
okay.
One doesn't know what
Right,
is a self-driving car.
It's a car that doesn't have a human driving it. That's what a self-driving car is.
Yes. Okay.
So
Fine.
we don't have
yeah.
A self-driving car is a car that doesn't have a human driving it. A
Right.
driverless car. I mean, I don't know. We had this discussion 5 or 6 years ago, and I thought we got past that whole thing.
We aren't past
No.
it. Nobody knows what anybody's talking about anyway in this business, which is part of the conundrum on this. Okay. And maybe in the end, that's what the auto industry sells it to us. It's what Elon's been trying to do. He has something called FSD. And you know,
we're gonna be talking about that in a month. If you invite me back in a month's time, we're going to be talking about exactly that issue.
Exactly that issue, you know, and FSD. But if you pull out the manual and it describes FSD, it says that the driver has to be in there in the seat and aware of what the heck's going on and capable of taking over. I mean, it says in fine print and and who read it, nobody knows, but we give it this name that our perception is that it's it's something. Elon, I guess, has a different perception.
The issue starts with this quote from Mark Twain: the truth has no defense against a fool determined to believe a lie. He was brilliant. Mark Twain. He knew how to turn.
So are you, Michael?
He knew how to turn a phrase.
He knew how to turn a phrase, and we agree. I mean, you can't disagree with that at all. Okay, and the issue is that we're in a situation here, and we're in a situation. Don't know.
Michael, proven once again just how valuable you are. Thank you so much for spending the time with us once again.
My pleasure. Always a pleasure.
Okay. Thank you, Michael.
The website for more is michaelsena.com. You can find the dispatcher there as well. Thank you to our sponsor, the Smart ETF's Smart Transportation and Technology ETF, The ticker symbol for the ETF is MOTO, and more info is available at motoetf.com. Technical support is provided by CARTS, the Corporation for Automated Road Transportation Safety. It's a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to safe and high-quality mobility for all. You can find us at smartdrivingcar.com, also on Anchor FM, Spotify, Amazon, TuneIn, Apple, Google, wherever you get your podcasts from. Smart speakers can play us too. You can find my tech reports at techstination.com. I'm Fred Fishkin along with Alain Kornhauser. Thank you for listening or watching. Please continue to stay safe.